Welcome to Money Making Sense. We are in the middle, actually we're kind of toward the tail end now of our 10 tax tip series. We're on number 7. It's when's the deadline to file our taxes? And joining me is Jody Hewitson. You are with Tanner. Welcome to the show, Jody.
Thank you.
So, April 15th. It's always been April 15th. I've got to get those taxes in. They've got to be postmarked by April 15th. I'm getting them in there, right?
It's usually April 15th.
Okay.
You would think that. Sometimes April 15th falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday. And this year, that's going to be the case. This year, April 15th is a Sunday.
Oh.
And there's a little known holiday, little known to us out in Utah, but it's back in DC called Emancipation Day. Technically, this is a federal holiday, so that moves filing of tax returns back to the next day, which this year will be April 17th on a Tuesday.
Yes. Okay. Woohoo, I've got 2 extra days to live it up.
Sure. 2 more days to get your tax return done. That doesn't mean that you'll want to delay, just because there's a lot of information that might go into getting your tax return ready. Okay. But yeah, definitely the return due date is April 17th this year instead of April 15th.
Does that mean my refund will also be delayed a couple of days?
It could be delayed. What we also see, because of the number of people that file between, in those last 2 weeks of April, if you're managing to file right up against the deadline, the IRS is overwhelmed with obviously a lot of returns. And so the later in the filing season that you end up filing your return, it may take them a little bit longer to process your refund.
Okay, so is there some sweet spot? Like, what's the best day to file to get my refund in 5 days?
Well, the IRS guidelines say that they generally need at least 3 weeks from the time you file your return until the time that you can start following up with them and asking them, where's my refund? The IRS has a really nice tool on their website at irs.gov that there's a link that says, where's my refund? Within, I think, 5 days after you file your return, you could start following up on that. And that's if you filed electronically. But they do say at least give us a minimum of 3 weeks to process any kind of refund.
Unfortunately, which I discussed in another episode of our tax tips, I didn't have any insurance because I thought that President Trump had taken care of all this. And turns out I owe a penalty because I didn't, from the Affordable Care Act, and I really don't want to pay it. And now I have to gather up money that I hadn't been planning for all year. And I'm not going to make this April 17th deadline. What do I do?
If you can't make the April 17th deadline, that doesn't extend your time to pay your tax. So if you do think that you're going to owe, the best thing to do is to file an extension. Pay in what you can, because if you don't pay in what is due with your estimated tax return, the IRS will start to assess penalties and interest on any amounts.
So I can delay filing, like the actual paperwork that goes in. I can delay that, but I still have to pay by the 17th.
But you still have to pay by the original due date.
But I have no clue, aside from the $695 that I owe in the penalties for not having insurance. I don't know what else I owe.
So the best thing to do, and this is what we recommend to people who don't have all of their information, maybe they're still waiting on, say, some K-1s or 1099s, or they have a small business and haven't been able to collect all of that information yet. The best thing to do is get a really good estimate of what you think you'll owe or not, and both for federal and for any states that you're filing in, because states also assess interest and penalties if you haven't paid any amounts that you might owe them. So the best thing to do is get your returns as complete as possible before you file those extensions.
So what if, even with my penalty, like I owed a $695 penalty, but it turns out that I'm due a refund of $300 on top of that penalty? Like, let's say my total refund was supposed to be $1,000.
Right.
But I was going to pay the penalty $695, so I should have gotten $300 back. Am I going to see that refund even though I paid money into it? Or what if I pay too much? What if I, paid?
You pay too much with your extension?
Yeah.
Then when you file your final return, then you'll get that overpayment back. That's the time that you'll request the overpayment.
Sure. Heard that before.
Yeah.
Checks in the mail.
Well, no, and it will be. It is actually quicker if you do e-file your return, because it takes the IRS a lot less time to process your return. I think if you file by paper, it takes them an additional 4 to 6 weeks to issue those refunds. So that's one tip, is if at all possible, e-file your return. They have free file services through the IRS. There are a number of tax softwares out there that you can file for free if you buy the package, or even if you're under a certain income amount, then you qualify for those free filing services. But that applies to both original returns, so returns that you get done by the April 17th deadline this year, or even if you extend your return and submit it at that point.
Do people still file by paper in this day and age?
Occasionally they do. There are some instances where the IRS can't accept e-file forms if you have certain attachments that you have to send along with your returns. The majority of returns can be e-filed now, though.
So if we fall in that category where there's some special form or something, it sounds like that's somewhat complicated, and we probably do need to see a certified public accountant.
Yeah, at that point you want a CPA anyway, because there might be some other things that you don't know about that they know about that they can help you with.
Okay. All right. Anything else that we need to know about this April 17th deadline this year for filing our taxes?
Like I said, just make sure that you're taking care of both your federal and your state extensions. Most of them you can file those online as well. There's a number of ways that you can make payments. So if you don't have the funds, if you have an amount due, you can pay via a credit card for most through most places. There are fees associated with that, obviously, but if it's a slight cash shortfall that you need to take care of, then that is one option. Okay. But they're out there. The one thing that we've also noticed is, again, right up next to the deadlines, sometimes websites go down. The IRS system has even gone down once in a while with the number of people trying to procrastinate and not take care of it sooner. So even if you're able to get things taken care of a week beforehand, because you might find out at that time, ooh, I'm missing this form, or I forgot to ask for this, then it gives you just a little bit more time versus trying to track it down in those last few days when most people are overwhelmed with people trying to get their final tax forms.
One last thing, if I do just submit a partial payment because I'm really not sure, like I've had to submit the extension. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm not going to make the April 17th, but I'm going to send in part of the money, or what I think I owe. Mm-hmm. How much interest does the IRS start charging versus, I know, the credit card?
Yeah, the IRS, it's actually a relatively low interest rate. They follow the federal rate, so it can run anywhere between like 2 and 3%. But then there are penalties for underpayment too, and that can be depending on how long it's outstanding. The penalty for failing to file an extension does increase those penalties. So even if you can't pay anything, at least file an extension, pay what you can, because it will minimize the penalties.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Jody Hewitson. You are with Tanner. Mm-hmm. And if we need any help, especially if it's an extension, we're going to come to you. But if you can't get to Jody, go to uacpa.org, and that's where you're going to find a CPA who's right for you.
Thanks for being a Money Making Sense listener. Follow your common sense onto social media. Money Making Sense on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.